On my 42nd birthday, I sat in a cafe quietly wondering if anyone would notice if I just stopped showing up to my own life. In front of me was a designer birthday cake. Nobody came to eat 42 unlit candles on top, like a bad joke. And then a 7-year-old stranger walked up to my table and asked 4 little words that saved my life. My name is Adrian Cole, and on paper I was the guy you see on magazine covers and LinkedIn posts. Billionaire CEO, visionary founder, all those fancy words people use when they only care about numbers. I had 3 homes, 2 jets, a car collection worth more than some people will make in 10 lifetimes. I employed thousands of people. I moved markets when I blinked. I was that guy. But that morning, sitting alone at a corner table in Sunrise Café, I felt like the poorest man on earth. You know that feeling when everything looks good from the outside, but the inside is just hollow. Yeah, that was me. The day started with an email at 6 a.m. from my business partner Trevor Hayes. Subject line, formal notice. 12 years of building coal industries together, late nights, early mornings, all-nighters, and in 3 paragraphs, he informed me he'd sold his shares to our biggest competitor for a percentage and a board seat. Hostile takeover. The lawyers told me I would keep majority control, that we had options that we could fight. And maybe they were right. But honestly, the numbers weren't what punched me in the gut. It was the betrayal. The realization that the guy I'd trusted with my life's work had been sitting across from me at meetings, smiling, shaking my hand, while negotiating behind my back. While I was still staring at that email, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from my fiancée, Rebecca. 2 years of wedding plans. House plans, future baby names, vacations, speeches about how proud she was of me. And I got, I'm with Trevor now. We've been together for 6 months. Don't contact me. Your credit cards are on your desk. No phone call, no conversation, no explanation. Just a couple of sentences that felt like someone kicked my ribs in from the inside. You think that's bad enough for one morning, right? My phone buzzed one more time. A message from my sister. My only sibling. For a second, I thought maybe she's the one person who'll say, "Happy birthday, how are you holding up?" Instead, it was, "Can you wire $50K for my new business idea? It's time sensitive." That was it. Not a single word about the fact I was born that day. Not a single word about me as a person. Just a walking wallet on her contact list. By 9 a.m., I was sitting in Sunrise Café, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt and slacks. I'd pulled off the floor, staring at a cake I'd ordered 2 weeks earlier, when I still thought I'd be celebrating with Rebecca and my staff. The icing was perfect. The colors were on brand, the candles still in the box, and my phone sat on the table face down, because I couldn't stand to watch it not light up. Around me, life went on like nothing was wrong. An elderly couple shared a muffin by the window. A couple of early risers tapped away on laptops. The barista wiped down the counter and kept glancing at me, like she wasn't sure if she should say something. I must have looked as bad as I felt. And then I heard this tiny voice right next to me, cutting clean through the noise in my head. "Are you okay, sir?" I looked up and there she was. This little girl, maybe 7 years old, brown skin, big curious eyes, hair pulled into 2 puffs with colorful beads that clicked softly when she moved. She had on a green jacket over a yellow dress and clutched a stuffed rabbit under one arm, like it was her partner in crime. She wasn't scared. She wasn't awkward. She wasn't trying to sell me anything. She was just worried. "What?" I said, because my brain genuinely forgot how to person for a second. "You look sad," she said. Like it was just a fact. "My mommy says when people look sad, we should check on them. Are you okay?" And here's the wild thing. I couldn't answer. I ran a company, negotiated billion-dollar deals, stood on stages in front of thousands of people, but a 7-year-old asking me if I was okay. That one got stuck in my throat. When was the last time anybody had asked me that, and actually meant it? With no angle, no agenda, no invoice attached, when was the last time someone looked at me and saw a human being instead of a bank account? If it were you sitting there, cake untouched, phone silent, a kid asking if you're okay, what would you have said? Destiny. A woman's voice cut through before I could even figure out my answer. Gentle, but firm. The little girl turned her head. Yes, Mommy. Her mom rushed over just a little out of breath, and I swear something shifted in my chest when I saw her. She was beautiful, but not in that polished, curated way I was used to. No designer logos screaming for attention, no sharp edges. She wore a bright red coat over jeans and a simple white shirt, her natural hair pulled up into a bun. And her smile, when she looked at me, actually reached her eyes, which is rarer than you'd think at my tax bracket. I'm so sorry, she said, giving me an apologetic smile that felt real. My daughter has a very big heart, and sometimes forgets about personal space. And out of nowhere, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. I smiled. For real. Not the PR smile, not the boardroom smile. Just mine. It's okay, I said. She's right. I am sad. Destiny nodded like she'd just solved a math problem. I knew it. Do you want to talk about it? Talking helps. My mommy says so. Destiny, her mom said again, more firmly this time. But there was love in it. We're bothering the man. I'm sorry, we'll leave you to your breakfast. And here's where I surprised myself. No, I said a little too quickly. Please, you don't have to go. I could use the company. Her mom hesitated, studying my face the way you do when you're trying to decide if someone is dangerous or just deeply sad. Whatever she saw must have leaned toward sad, because she finally nodded. Okay, she said slowly. Just for a minute. She turned to her daughter. And you need to ask before you walk up to strangers. Remember, I know, Mommy, Destiny said, already pulling out the chair next to me, but he needed help. I gestured at the other chairs, suddenly weirdly nervous. Would you like to sit? Have cake. Birthday cake. Too much for one person. Destiny's eyes went huge. It's your birthday. It is, I said. And you're alone. She looked genuinely horrified. That's the saddest thing ever. Her mom touched her shoulder. Destiny. I laughed, and it came from somewhere deep. Somewhere I thought had shut down. You know what? I said. You're absolutely right. It is pretty sad. Our eyes met. Mine and the mom's. And in that split second, it felt like she saw all the stuff I wasn't saying. And I saw her kindness, her concern, the way she wasn't judging me, just seeing me. 3 strangers at a little corner table in a cafe, somehow already connected by something bigger than small talk. I'm Simone, she said, holding out her hand. Simone Bennett, and this is my daughter Destiny. Adrian, I said, taking her hand. Adrian Cole. Her handshake was warm and steady. Not that distracted, limp handshake I got at business dinners, where everyone's already scanning the room for someone more important. She was actually there with me in that moment. They sat down. The barista, who'd been watching from behind the counter with this soft little smile, brought extra plates and forks without us asking. I cut the cake, 1 slice for Destiny, 1 for Simone, 1 for me. Destiny insisted I make a wish. Already did, I said quietly. You two just walked in. We started talking not about billion-dollar deals or stock prices, just life. Destiny interrogated me like I was being vetted for a job. What's your favorite color? Blue. Favorite animal? Dogs, even though I'd never had one. Chocolate or vanilla? I honestly had never thought about it, which she found deeply suspicious. Simone apologized at least 3 times for her daughter being too much, and every time I told her, "Please don't apologize. This is the best birthday I've had in years." And I meant it. Sitting there with frosting on a paper plate listening to a second grader talk about her school play, I felt more human than I had in a long time. At one point, Destiny kicked her legs under the table and said in between bites of cake, "Sometimes people just need someone to notice them." My daddy used to say that. Used to? I saw the way Simone's face flickered. A shadow, a sharp pain that passed quickly, but not so quickly that I missed it. "Eat your cake, baby," she said gently. I wanted to ask, but I'd just met them. It didn't feel like my place. We ate in a silence that wasn't awkward, just full. The cafe got busier. People came and went. Life did what life does. But at that table, 3 people who'd been strangers that morning were sharing more than just cake. It was small talk, and something deeper at the same time. The kind of connection you don't realize you're starving for until you taste it again. Eventually, Simone checked the time and said they needed to go. Destiny hopped off her chair, then quickly wrapped her arms around me in a hug that caught me completely off guard. "Thank you for sharing your birthday with us," she said, serious as can be. "Thank you for noticing that I needed a friend," I replied, and my voice came out rough. I didn't bother hiding it. They left walking out hand in hand, talking about something that made Destiny laugh so hard, her beads clicked like tiny bells. I sat there for another hour, staring at the empty plates and half-eaten cake. Then I started cutting slices for the family at the next table when I overheard it was their little boy's birthday too. His face lit up like someone turned Christmas back on in his chest. "Before we go any further, let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. When was the last time you saw somebody sitting alone, looking like the world just fell on them, and you actually walked over and checked on them? And have you ever been that person, hoping silently that somebody would come ask if you were okay?" I left the cafe around noon with 17 missed calls. My assistant, my lawyers, 3 board members, and Trevor. I deleted Trevor's voicemail without listening, turned my phone off, and stepped out into a cold, bright day that felt just a tiny bit less heavy than it had that morning. That should have been the end of it, right? Nice moment, kind strangers. Lesson about humanity. Cue the credits. But for some reason all week, I kept thinking about that little girl and her mom, the way it felt to sit across from someone who didn't want anything from me except conversation and shared cake. So the next Sunday, I went back to Sunrise Café. I told myself it was for the coffee. That was a lie, and we all know it. I got there around 9, ordered a black coffee I barely tasted, and pretended to scroll through my email, while every time the bell over the door rang, my head snapped up before I could stop it. At 9:15, the door opened, and Destiny practically exploded into the room in a bright blue dress, Simone walking in behind her in a green coat. I'm not proud of how fast my heart started beating, but there it is. "Mr. Cole," Destiny shouted when she saw me like we were old friends. "You came back." "I did," I said, grinning. "The cake last week was pretty good." "There's no cake today," she informed me, disappointed. "Then I guess we're going to have to survive with pancakes," I said. Tragic. She looked at Simone, silently pleading. We already planned what we were going to have. Simone started, then looked over at me. "We don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," I said, maybe a little too quickly again. "I'd actually love the company if you don't mind, and I'd like to buy you breakfast. Consider it part 2 of my birthday." I could see her doing the mental math. Pride, boundaries, this strange man, in an expensive coat. Her daughter's hopeful face, the reality of money. Then she smiled just slightly and nodded. "Okay," she said. "Thank you. That's very kind." Destiny ordered chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream and sprinkles. Simone ordered the simplest thing on the menu, omelet and fruit. I ordered the exact same thing so she wouldn't feel like I was showing off. We talked. Destiny told me everything about her week at school. Her teacher, the kid who always sniffled too much, the new book she was reading. She reminded me, there's a version of life where your biggest problem is whether you get line leader tomorrow. At one point, Destiny slid off her chair and went to look at the fish tank in the corner, leaving Simone and me alone at the table. "Your daughter is remarkable," I said. Simone watched her with that look. Love and worry and exhaustion all swirled together. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me," she said. "How long have you been on your own?" I asked softly. She sighed. 3 years, she said. "My husband James passed away. Cancer. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. Destiny was 4. She remembers him, but I can see those memories fading, and that kills me. I'm so sorry," I said. And I meant it in a way I don't always when those words come out of my mouth. "Thank you," she said. "We're okay. It was rough at first financially and emotionally, but we're managing." There's that word again. Managing. Not thriving. Not living. Just treading water with a kid on your shoulders, hoping you don't both go under. After breakfast, we walked to a little park a few blocks away. Destiny sprinted to the swings, yelling for us to push her, higher, higher. And we took turns until my arms actually felt like they might fall off, and she still wanted more. "You're good with kids," Simone said, as we sat on a bench for a minute, watching Destiny barrel toward the slide and instantly make friends with 2 other children. "I don't have much experience," I admitted, catching my breath, but Destiny makes it easy. We watched her in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that doesn't demand to be filled. Then Simone said, "Can I ask you something?" "Anything," I said. "What do you do for work?" I mean, I'm guessing that suit from last week didn't come off a clearance rack. I almost lied. I almost said, "I work in tech," and left it there. I was tired of people treating me differently when they recognized my last name or my face from an article. But something about her made me want to tell the truth. "I run a company," I said. "Coal industries, technology sector." Her eyebrows rose just slightly. "Explains the watch, too," she said with a little smirk. "Even wrinkled that shirt last week looked expensive." I laughed. "It was a rough morning." "I could tell," she said quietly. "Want to talk about it?" So I did. Not about stock options or shareholder votes. Just about the feeling of realizing the people you trusted most had been standing on the other side the whole time. I told her about Trevor's email, Rebecca's text, my sister's message, how my life looked like success to everyone else but felt like a cage from the inside. She didn't interrupt. She didn't jump in with her own story or try to top mine. She just listened, nodding here and there, nodding like somebody who understood what it meant to have the ground pulled out from under you. "I'm sorry," she said when I finished. "Not just about what they did, but about how long you went without anyone really seeing you." She paused. "I'm not sorry you ended up in that cafe that day, though." "Me neither," I said. And I realized I meant that too. We spent the rest of the afternoon at the park. When they finally had to go, I walked back to my penthouse and looked around at that huge, perfect space, and for the first time ever, it felt less like an achievement and more like an empty stage after the audience has gone home. From that day on, Sunday mornings at Sunrise Café became hours. I stopped pretending it was about the coffee. Destiny would barrel into the cafe like she owned the place. Mrs. Chen, the owner, started greeting us by name, and that corner table became the one spot in the city where I could take off the Adrian Cole CEO mask and just be Adrian. In those mornings, I learned just how hard Simone was grinding. She worked at a flower shop, did bookkeeping for small businesses in the evenings, juggled bus schedules, because her car had broken down 2 weeks earlier, and the repair estimate was $1,500 she didn't have. Rent was due. She was $400 short, and she was trying to make it work without letting destiny feel the weight of any of it. The day she accidentally let that slip, she immediately regretted it. "Ignore me," she said, waving it off. "We'll be fine. We always are." "How short are you?" I asked. She froze. "That's not why I told you," she said. "You don't need to worry about our mess. We barely know you." "Simone," I said, "your daughter walked up to a stranger and asked if he was okay, and quite literally dragged him back into his own life. I think we're past barely know you at this point." She hesitated, then exhaled. "400, she said finally. "But I'll figure it out. I always do. The late fees are just rough." I pulled out my wallet and counted out 500 in cash. "Here," I said, laying it on the table. Her whole body went stiff. "Absolutely not," she said. "Adrian, no. I'm not taking your money like that." "It's not enough," I said, "but it's a start." She stared at me like she was trying to decide if she should be offended or grateful. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "We're not some charity project." "I know you're not," I said. "Look, last week when I was sitting in that cafe, I was in a very dark place. I'm not exaggerating when I say I was questioning whether anything in my life was worth continuing. And then Destiny walked up, asked if I was okay, and you sat down and shared my birthday with me. That kindness. You have no idea what it did for me. This isn't charity. This is me saying thank you. And honestly, it makes me feel human again, to be able to do something that actually matters for somebody, not just push numbers around." Her eyes softened, but the pride was still there, fighting for ground. I watched the war play out on her face. Independence versus reality. Finally, she reached out and took the money, her hand shaking just a little. "Thank you," she whispered. "You really don't know what this means." "I think I do," I said. That night, I called my mechanic and told him to get Simone's car from the shop, fix everything on the estimate, and send me the bill. 3 days later, her car was back in her parking lot running better than it had in years. She called the shop 3 times trying to find out who paid. They just kept saying, "A friend took care of it." Around the same time, something shifted in the way I saw my company. I stopped seeing it as this machine I needed to make bigger and bigger, and started seeing it as a place where 5,000 families depended on how I made decisions. I started asking different questions in meetings, not just, what will this do to profits, but what will this do to people? I pushed for better benefits, real mental health coverage, childcare assistance, flexible hours. Some executives thought I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. But I finally felt like I'd found my heart. Meanwhile, my relationship with Simone and Destiny kept deepening in a way that didn't feel flashy or dramatic, just solid and real. I went to Destiny's school play, where she proudly played Tree Number 2 and delivered her 3 lines with more confidence than most CEOs I know have at the podium. I brought her wildflowers after the show because she'd told me trees liked wildflowers the best. I started spending more Saturday afternoons at the library with her, while Simone picked up extra shifts at the flower shop. We'd sit in the children's section, her with a pile of books, and me with a stack I pretended not to be totally into. Sometimes we'd go to the park afterward and feed the ducks stale bread from Simone's kitchen. One afternoon at the library cafe, Destiny stared at me over a hot chocolate and asked, "Mr. Cole, are you still sad?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "When I first met you, you were really sad," she said. I could tell. "Are you still sad now?" And I thought about it. Nobody had asked me that again. Not like that. Not just, "How are you?" but "Are you still sad?" "No," I said slowly. "Not like before. You and your mom helped with that." "Good," she said, satisfied. "You smile more now. Mommy likes it when you smile. She told Aunt Rachel you have a nice smile," she added casually. I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. That did something weird to my heartbeat. "Well," I said, trying to sound casual, "your mom has a nice smile, too." You know those moments where you realize your life has quietly slid onto a different track, and you almost missed the switch. That's what those months felt like. Dinners at Simone's small apartment with spaghetti and garlic bread instead of tasting menus and wine pairings. Board games at her wobbly kitchen table, where destiny demolished us both in Candyland, and Simone always seemed to win at Uno. Nights where destiny fought bedtime until I promised I'd be the one to tuck her in and read her a chapter from her book. One night after we finally gave in, she hugged me and said, "I'm glad you're here." "Me too," I said back. "Are you going to keep coming back?" she asked. "Some of Mommy's friends stopped coming after a while." I felt that in my chest. "I'm not going anywhere," I told her. "I promise. Really, truly promise. Really, truly promise." She smiled and said, "Good, because I love you, Mr. Cole." I just stood there for a second looking at this tiny human who had no idea how much she'd changed my life, and I said, "I love you too, Destiny." Later that night, after we cleaned up dinner together, Simone and I were moving around the tiny kitchen like we'd been doing it for years. She leaned against the counter drying a plate and said, "You know you've become important to us, right?" "I was starting to hope so," I said. "I need you to be sure about this," she said. "About being in our lives. Because if you decide this is too much or too complicated or not worth it, Destiny will be heartbroken. And so will I." I took a breath, stepped closer. "I am sure," I said. "More sure than I've been about anything in a long time. I know it's only been a few months. I know it probably looks crazy from the outside, but I know how I feel." "How do you feel?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I was sleepwalking through my life," I said, "like everything was technically working, but nothing was really alive. And then I met you two, and suddenly, things started to have color again. I feel like every moment with you and Destiny matters in a way nothing else has. I feel like I'm falling in love with you, Simone." She didn't look shocked. She looked relieved and scared and happy all at once. Her eyes filled with tears. "I feel it too," she said quietly. "It scares me because it's so fast, so unexpected, but it's real." We stood there close enough to feel each other's breath, and I wanted to kiss her, but I didn't move. I wanted her to choose that moment. She did. She leaned in and kissed me, soft, careful, full of promise. "Yeah, that happened. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind, especially when my past walked back into that cafe and tried to drag me back to the man I used to be." One Sunday, not long after that, Simone and I were sitting at our usual table at Sunrise Café. Destiny was at a friend's house for a playdate, so it was just the two of us drinking coffee, sharing a slice of cake, talking about her nursing school application, and my plans to restructure more of the company. It felt normal in the best way. Then the bell over the door rang, and every muscle in my body went tight. Trevor walked in, and right behind him, Rebecca. They hadn't changed much. He still had that expensive suit and that air of entitlement. She still had that polished, curated look, designer dress, perfect hair, the kind of woman who never sat in a cafe without checking who might be watching. They saw me almost immediately. Rebecca's eyes went wide, then narrowed when she noticed Simone sitting across from me. She said something to Trevor, and they came straight to our table. "Adrian," she said, with that smooth, fake sweetness I used to fall for. "Fancy seeing you here. This is quite a downgrade from your usual spots, isn't it?" I stood up slowly, positioning myself just slightly in front of Simone, without even thinking about it. "Rebecca." "Trevor," I said. "I'd say it's nice to see you, but my parents raised me better than to lie." Trevor smirked. "Still bitter about the business, Cole?" "You should be thanking me. That company was stagnating under your old school leadership. We're taking it places you never imagined. You mean losing key clients and burning out your staff, I said calmly. I've seen the numbers. You're bleeding people, and your top accounts are quietly shopping for alternatives. But sure tell yourself you're changing the world. Rebecca barely heard that. She was focused on Simone. And who is this? She asked, using that tone I'd heard her use on waitstaff. Let me guess, aspiring model actress influencer, whatever girls call themselves, while they're waiting for a man to fund their lifestyle. Before I could say a word, Simone stood up next to me. I'm Simone, she said, looking Rebecca straight in the eyes. Adrian's girlfriend. And you must be Rebecca, the ex who left him for his business partner. He did mention you. Rebecca's smile faltered. Just a little. At least I chose someone with ambition, she said. Someone who's still relevant. Adrian's been a ghost in the business world for months. Everyone's talking about his downfall. My downfall? I repeated with a little laugh. Rebecca, I've restructured my company to focus on sustainable growth and employee well-being. Profits are up, turnover is down, and for the first time in my life, I can look around the office and not feel like I'm running a sweatshop with catered lunches. I don't expect you to understand that. You never saw people just status. Trevor cut in. Listen to yourself, man. Daycare mental health support. Flexible hours. You're running a charity, not a company. I'm running a company where people matter, I said. Wild concept, I know. Rebecca turned back to Simone, looking her up and down like she was cheap fabric. What do you do, Simone? She asked. Besides this, I mean. I work at a flower shop, I'm in nursing school, and I'm raising a daughter, Simone said evenly. Anything else you'd like to insult? A single mother, Rebecca said, like it was proof of her point. How convenient for you finding a billionaire to fix your life. Must be nice. That's enough, I snapped. You don't get to talk to her like that. Oh, Adrian, Rebecca said, softening her tone, but not her words. I'm just trying to protect you. This woman is clearly using you. You really think she'd be here if you were just some guy without the private jets. I looked at Rebecca, then at Trevor, then at Simone standing beside me, calm and steady. And I realized something. For all their power, all their money, all their smugness, they looked small. And I didn't belong to them anymore. You know what's funny? Simone said before I even answered. Adrian told me everything you two did. How you stabbed him in the back, how you left him, how you used him. And honestly, I'm glad you did. Rebecca blinked. Excuse me. I'm glad. Simone repeated, voice still calm. Because if you hadn't betrayed him, he wouldn't have been in this cafe on that awful birthday. He wouldn't have met my daughter. He wouldn't have learned what real love looks like, what real partnership feels like. So, thank you. Thank you for being exactly who you are. You pushed him in the right direction without even meaning to. Rebecca's face flushed red. You're delusional if you think this is going to last, she snapped. Men like Adrian get bored of playing house with charity cases. They always come back. Men like me, I said slowly, spent a long time confusing success with happiness. You're right, I have changed. And I'm grateful for that, every single day, right then. Like the universe was directing a movie. The door opened, and Destiny burst in, backpack on hair beads clicking, scanning the room for us. She spotted me and Simone, and started toward us, then slowed when she saw Rebecca and Trevor. Hey, Mr. Cole, she said a little quieter than usual. Who are they? No one important, I said. Putting a hand on her shoulder, Rebecca let out this little laugh. Oh, this is rich, she said. Playing daddy to someone else's kid. How long do you think that'll be fun, Adrian? Destiny frowned. That's a mean thing to say, she told her. Destiny, Simone said gently. Sweetheart, some people don't know how to be kind. It's sad. I feel sorry for them, Destiny said. Then she slipped her hand into mine and looked up at us. "Can we go? These people are making me uncomfortable." "Absolutely," I said. I put enough cash on the table to cover our bill and a very generous tip, then turned back to Rebecca and Trevor. "I used to think you two destroyed my life," I said. "But looking at you now and looking at what I have, I realize you actually saved it. You showed me what I don't want, and now I have exactly what I do want. So, goodbye, Rebecca. Goodbye, Trevor. I genuinely hope you find whatever you're chasing, but I'm done looking backward." We walked out. She yelled something about me regretting this. I didn't even turn around. "Do you think that's fair? To thank the people who broke you because their betrayal pushed you where you needed to go?" Some days I still wrestle with that. But I can tell you this much. I wouldn't trade what I have now for the life I had with them. Not for any amount of money. A few months later, I went back to Sunrise Café with a different kind of weight in my chest. Not dread this time. Nerves. And hope. I got there early and asked Mrs. Chen if we could use the table where it all began. I brought flowers, red roses for Simone, a small, colorful bouquet for Destiny. Destiny arrived first, with Simone's sister Rachel, carrying a sign she'd made with markers and glitter that said, "Will you marry my dad? Please say yes." "Your sign looks amazing," I told her. "I know," she said proudly. "Do you think she'll say yes?" "I hope so," I said. "Even if she needs some time to think about it, that's okay." "She told Aunt Rachel you're her soulmate," Destiny said, like it was no big deal. I heard her. At 9 a.m. on the dot, Simone walked in looking confused when she saw the flowers and the reserved sign, and Destiny practically vibrating with excitement. She wore a maroon dress and had her hair in natural curls, and my first insane thought was, I've never been this sure of anything in my life. "Adrian," she said slowly, "what is all this?" "Come sit," I said, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. She sat. Destiny tried to hide the sign under the table and didn't do a great job. Simone looked between us, suspicious now and a little shaky. "Okay, you're scaring me," she said. I took a breath. 6 months ago, I started. I sat in that corner over there on my birthday with a cake and no candles and no one coming. I'd just found out my business partner betrayed me. My fiancé left me, and my own family only remembered I existed when they needed money. I genuinely believed I might have built this whole life for nothing. Her eyes softened because she'd heard this part before, but I kept going. "And then," I said, looking at Destiny. "A 7-year-old girl walked up to my table, looked me straight in the eye, and asked if I was okay. Nobody had done that for me in longer than I can remember. That one question changed everything." Destiny beamed. "You could have pulled her away," I said to Simone. "You could have apologized and left, but instead you sat down. You shared my birthday. You shared cake. You shared your time. You let me into your life and your daughter's life. And these last 6 months have been the happiest I can remember, not because of what I've done or bought, but because of who I've been with." My voice shook a little, but I didn't care. "You gave me a family. You gave me a home that isn't made of glass and marble. You gave me a reason to get up in the morning that has nothing to do with stock prices." Then I did something I never thought I'd do again after Rebecca. I got down on one knee in the middle of that cafe. Simone gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Destiny nearly jumped out of her chair. Mrs. Chen peeked around the corner with a grin. "Simone Bennett," I said, pulling out a ring that somehow felt smaller than the moment I love you. "I love your strength, your stubbornness, your kindness. I love the way you love Destiny, the way you've let me love her too. I love the life we've built, the spaghetti dinners, the library trips, the park swings, even the 2nd grade math homework that makes me question my education." She laughed through her tears. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, I said, and with Destiny if she'll keep me. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and officially be Destiny's father? Will you let me prove every day that I'm worthy of this second chance? Before she could answer, Destiny stood up on her chair and held up her glittery sign. Will you marry my dad? She yelled. Please say yes. Simone looked at her daughter, then at me, tears rolling freely now. Yes, she said, her voice catching. Yes, of course I'll marry you. I slipped the ring on her finger, stood up and pulled her into a hug that felt like all the grief and loneliness and fear of the last years finally exhaling. The whole cafe clapped. Mrs. Chen brought out a cake. Chocolate, of course, with little fondant figures on top that looked suspiciously like the three of us. The next few months were a blur in the best way. We found a house in a family neighborhood with trees and sidewalks, and a backyard big enough for a swing set and a little garden. Destiny picked her room, the one with 2 windows facing the yard, and announced she was going to paint it purple. You can paint it any color you want, I told her, and I meant it. We started the adoption process. One day, while we were assembling a bookshelf in our new living room, Destiny looked up and said, When you marry Mommy, will you really be my dad? Like for real, for real? I'd like to be, I said, setting the screwdriver down. If that's okay with you, I'd like to be your dad in every way. Not just how we feel, but on paper too, officially. What about my first dad? She asked quietly. My dad in heaven. Is he still my dad? Simone sat on the floor next to her. Baby, your first dad will always be your dad, she said. No one can change that, and no one is trying to. You can love him and love Adrian. Hearts don't run out of room. He used to read me stories with funny voices, Destiny said. He sounds like he was amazing, I said. I hope I can honor him by doing right by you. I'm not here to replace him. I'm just here to be another person who loves you and shows up for you. She thought for a second, then stood up and wrapped her arms around my waist. Okay, she said. You can be my dad too. The day the judge signed the papers and said, Congratulations, Destiny Bennett Cole. I felt more pride than any award I'd ever received in business. Outside the courthouse, Destiny grabbed my hand and said, You were already my dad. You know that, right? This just makes it official. Simone went back to nursing school with the help of a scholarship my company's new education program just happened to offer for partners of employees and their families. She worked her shifts at the flower shop because she loved it. Not because she had to study it at night, aced her classes, and eventually graduated to work in pediatrics, where every parent loves her within 5 minutes. We had a small wedding at the Botanical Gardens. Just family, close friends, a couple of colleagues I actually liked. Destiny wore a purple dress and called herself Maid of Honor, standing between us like the bridge she'd always been. We wrote our own vows, cried through. Most of them danced to a song Destiny picked that wasn't remotely traditional and absolutely perfect. 1 year after that wedding, I found myself back at Sunrise Café on my birthday again. Same cafe, same city, completely different life. Simone sat beside me 8 months pregnant with our baby, wearing a blue dress and absently rubbing her belly. Destiny, now 8, sat across from us with a notebook full of drawings and science facts because she'd decided she was going to be a doctor. Mrs. Chen brought over our usual order: coffee for me, tea for Simone, hot chocolate for Destiny, pancakes for the table, and set down a chocolate cake with a little smile. Happy birthday, Adrian, she said. On the house. You say that every time, I protested. And I mean it every time, she said. You brought love into this cafe. Some bills you just don't pay with money. We laughed, we ate, we talked. We watched life move around us. At some point, I noticed a man sitting alone near the window. Business suit, tie loosened, staring at his phone with that hollow, faraway look I recognized in my bones. Destiny followed my gaze. "He looks sad," she said quietly. "Dad, should we go say hi?" I looked at Simone. She nodded, smiling. "Feels familiar, doesn't it?" she said. I cut a slice of cake, put it on a plate, and the three of us walked over. "Excuse me, sir," Destiny said, in that same clear little voice that had cut through my darkness 2 years before. "Are you okay? You look sad. If you're sad, talking helps." He looked up, startled eyes moving from Destiny's serious face to me to Simone, back to the cake. I've been better," he said. "It's my dad's birthday," Destiny said. "We brought cake. You can have some if you want. Cake makes things better." He gave a small, confused laugh. "Your dad's birthday, huh?" "Yeah," she said. "He was really sad on his birthday once. I helped him. Now, we help people together." I held out my hand. "I'm Adrian," I said. "This is my wife Simone and our daughter Destiny. We've got more cake than we can eat. Want to join us?" He hesitated, then shook my hand. "Robert," he said. "I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding," Simone said. "We'd really like the company." He sat with us, and after a while, he started talking. His story wasn't identical to mine, but it rhymed. Long marriage, falling apart, partners, pushing him out of the firm. He helped build kids who barely spoke to him, sitting in a cafe on a Sunday, wondering when exactly his life stopped being his. "You sound like you've been there," he said at one point. "I have," I said. 2 years ago, I was sitting at that table over there on my birthday thinking I'd lost everything that mattered. Then this kid walked over and asked if I was okay. You know what he said? Destiny cut in proud. He said no. I didn't actually manage to say it out loud, I said, smiling. But she was right. I wasn't okay. And letting her ask that question, and staying long enough to accept help. That's why I'm sitting here today with a family, instead of alone with a cake. Robert shook his head. "I don't know if I can do what you did," he said. "I've been this person for so long. I don't know how to be anything else." "Start small," I said. "Call one of your kids when you leave here. Not to defend yourself, not to argue, just to say you're sorry you weren't there the way you should have been, and you want to do better. Reach out to one friend who knew you before the titles, and ask how they're really doing. Accept help when it's offered, even if your ego screams. And remember this, success without people to share it with is just numbers on a screen." Before he left, I gave him my card. "If you ever need to talk," I said. Actually talk, call me. I'm serious." He looked at the card, then at us. "Why?" he asked. "You don't know me. Because 2 years ago, I said a stranger's kindness saved my life. This is me paying it forward." His eyes got shiny. He shook my hand again, thanked us, and left. I don't know what he'll do with that moment. But I know this. Sometimes a single kind interaction doesn't just change your day, it rewrites your future. I'm living proof. So here's where I leave it with you. We live in a world that loves to measure people by what they own, what they drive, what they wear, how many zeros are in their accounts. I spent most of my life winning that game and losing myself in the process. The day a little girl walked up to my table and asked if I was okay was the day I started understanding what real wealth is. Real wealth is a kid who calls you dad and trusts that you're staying. It's a partner who loves you when the market is up and when it's crashing. It's the freedom to say no to deals that hurt people and yes to policies that actually help them. It's being able to take the resources you have and point them towards something that matters instead of just stacking them higher. So I want to ask you, do you believe we owe each other that? Do you believe that if you see someone clearly drowning in plain sight, you have a responsibility to throw at least a word their way? Hey, are you okay? Or do you think everyone should just fight their own battles and keep their head down? Pretend we don't see each other falling apart at the next table. If it were you at that cafe on your worst day, would you want someone like Destiny to walk over? Or would you rather everyone ignore you because it's not their business? And be honest, have you ever been the one who saved somebody's day with a simple act of kindness without even knowing it? I really want to hear what you think. Drop a comment and tell me your take. Do we have a moral responsibility to show up for strangers? Or is that just something nice if it happens, but not required? Have you ever had your life changed by a small act of kindness, or by a betrayal that eventually pushed you somewhere better? Do you really think success means anything if you don't have people you love sitting on the other side of the table? If my story hits something in you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Hit like, so this message reaches more people, and subscribe if you want more real stories about what actually matters when the money and the titles fall away. And in your own life, maybe the next time you see someone sitting alone, staring at nothing, just remember those 4 little words that changed everything for me.